All right, so from Aaliyah, we are going to go to the Ghostface Killer, as I always think of the introduction, right?
Mm-hmm.
In
ODB.
yeah, ODB in what's Protect Your Neck, right? Is
Yep.
the track basically like introduced all of them. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. In the opener, you heard "All That I Got Is You," another track featuring a rapper and Mary J. Blige this week, and now you're gonna hear a little bit of Daytona 500 featuring Ghostface and the two other guys all over this album, Raekwon and Capadonna. Matt, run numbers for me.
Iron Man by Ghostface Killah comes at a number 434 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 46 in 1996, number 2,445 of all time. It's Ghostface Killah's third highest rated album on Best Ever Albums, behind 2006's Fish Scale and 2000's Supreme Clientele. Iron Man did
We'll
not
cover
make.
both.
Yep, Iron Man did not make Rolling Stone's list. Ghostface Killah is ranked number 605 of overall artists on Best Ever Albums.
All right. Yeah, this album, like a lot of the Wu-Tang solo albums, has a lot of different members of the Wu-Tang Clan, and it's interesting how some of them come together as like power duos or trios in these albums, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this one is Ghostface Killah almost featuring Raekwon and Capadonna. You Gods on this one a lot, quite a bit too. So you have like most of my favorite Wu-Tang names on this. Ghostface Killah, Capadonna, and Raekwon the Chef, I think, are my three favorite Wu-Tang names. Old Dirty Bastard's pretty close though too, I'd say. But one thing the Wu-Tang Clan knew how to do was come up with a name and multiple aliases, didn't they? So Ghostface Killah, fifth Wu-Tang solo album, and we've done them close to the order they came out in. But in what's always interesting in the Wu-Tang thing, like how do these people all know each other, right? Some are related, some, stuff. Ghostface Killah was actually a roommate of RZA. That is how they got to know each other, and he actually was one of the guys who brought together the other seven members with the idea of coming together as like a clan, right? Like the Wu-Tang
Mm.
clan. He grew up in the Stapleton Houses housing project in Staten Island, and he actually had two younger brothers. He references this on a track. All That I Got Is You, actually, is where he references it. He had two younger brothers who both had muscular dystrophy. So, yeah, that's no joke, right? Two
Mm-hmm.
different folks in there, and money was tight. So, um, yeah, good on him for being part of the care right there. Ghostface Killah has his own record label, which hilariously is called Starks Enterprises, which I found very funny for a number of reasons. And probably pound for pound, I would say the Ghostface Killah is probably the most critically acclaimed member of the group, while GZA had Liquid Swords, right? That was also acclaimed, and Raekwon also. All of these albums were pretty much critically acclaimed. Ghostface Killah routinely appeared on best of lists for throughout the 90s and the 2000s. So, as we talked about, Only Built for Cuban Links earlier, he's all over that album with Raekwon, and Raekwon serves a similar role on this album for him. Those two sort of, they've done fake feuds before, which has been more like theater, right, than anything that
Mm-hmm.
they were actually fighting. They weren't, but they kind of consider themselves to sort of be uh like brothers. They feel like they have similar like Ghostface's quote is saying they have basically the same lifestyle and sort of the same aesthetic tastes. I think you can kind of see thematically this album and Only Built for Cuban Links are probably the most similar. He kind of viewed this album as like a like Raekwon in his thought of himself as the star of the movie, and Ghostface Killah as the guest star, and RZA as the director, right? And this follows a similar type of approach thematically, I would say. They kind of tried to do the same thing, but like reversing some of those roles was
Mm-hmm.
kind of how they described those two albums. So they kind of are in some ways like a paired set thematically. This also was produced by RZA, no surprise there with the beats, and was heavily influenced by blaxploitation films and soul samples. That was two things that were weaved throughout. In fact, most of the tracks on this album have a opener that usually comes from a blaxploitation film.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And also lyrically, And I was catching some of it, but then went back. It does have a lot of references to the nation of gods and earths, which you may know as what, guys? What's another name for it?
10%ers.
The 5%ers.
Five
Yes,
percenters.
they're
Oh,
they're
I'm a
all over the
10%er.
90s. The 5%ers.
Josh is
Go
doubling
back
their
in
membership.
time. Yeah, go back in time. Yeah, they would not be happy about that because that 5%'s the big part, man. But go back in time. I think was it Black Sheep where I kind of went into like the 5%er.
I thought it was
Eric B. and Rakim, I
Eric
think.
B.
Eric B. and
Rakim,
Rakim,
yeah.
maybe. Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's a thematic. It's thematic across most of '90s hip hop. It was very much intertwined in there. So a couple other tracks because we have covered the Wu-Tang Clan like quite a bit. I can get a little bit into Ghostface Killah's. We're gonna also cover him so often that it's gonna be easier to like follow him from track to track. But at this point, he's very much like a member of the Wu-Tang Clan. He kind of says that he lived not necessarily a like like a high-minded life. You know what I mean? He definitely liked the party a little bit more. He liked the women and stuff like that. Like he did not hide or have a conflicted idea with that. Later he'd kind of dial it down. At one point, he actually drops the Killah from his name and it's just Ghostface. And we'll talk about the transition there and why he did that. But he's kind of an interesting two sides of the coin, kind of. You know what I mean? Where he has like the party lifestyle, but also he's kind of like the glue that keeps parts of the Wu-Tang Clan together. He's got strong bonds with the other members. He's taking care of those brothers, growing up. So he's an interesting guy. I'm sorry to do like such a bio that kind of is so scattershot, but I know I'll be able to add stuff into this, but also we're going to be talking about Ghostface 3 other times, I think, album wise. And he released a recent album that was well received, so maybe 4 when we get to that later on. I've been on the record as saying that Ghostface Killah as a rapper is probably my favorite of the Wu-Tang Clan members. So I'll share what I feel this way. But Matt, let's have you start. What'd you think of this one, Iron Man?
I think first of all, I think I'm just getting to the point where I'm starting to differentiate some of the members, right? There's their vocals. Like I've always been able to, I can pick out Method Man and RZA very easily. I think that they, to me, have two of the most
And
distinct
ODB,
voices.
I would guess.
ODB, yes, I could pick out him too. But like, I still like, what does You God sound like? Inspector Deck, I can't. I'm kind of getting a little bit more, understanding of Raekwon and Ghostface Killah. But yeah, I'm still a neophyte, I guess, in a lot of this. So I like most of my music listening experiences, I go towards the music, the beats. I want to just acknowledge, and I think we've talked about this before, but RZA is doing so much at this time, right? And that's what I think you mentioned that once he gave a quote like, "I just was in the basement for 2.5 years," because he's doing all of these records, right?
I was
like
too tired to have sex, he said, for the 3. Not this
for
one. He was back to having
relations,
sex, I think, by this. Yeah. Female relations, yes.
Or whatever his line was. Yeah. But oh my God, like, and it's not just, these are all like, really, there's like all these albums have, 19 tracks on them and they're an hour and 10, 15, 20 minutes long, and it's just the output is just insane, right? They're all individual records by their names, but they also include RZA pretty much producing all of them, and all of them guest, with guest spots, particularly like obviously with this and Only Built for Cuban Links, like clearly Ghostface and Raekwon have a partnership that's seems to be more tightly connected than the other members. As far as the rappers go, I mean, obviously, RZA's all over the place, but I'm amazed by that, because I'm just thinking about like all the samples that RZA's going through, like how to pick which sounds for which album for which artist. What sounds better with this person, that type of thing. Yet they all kind of have a similar vibe in their, it's, the the production style, the like where he's drawing the samples from, like blaxploitation films, like you're talking about, like 70s kind of stuff, the jazz stuff that he's drawing from. It's coming, like the deep knowledge that he must have. It's unbelievable. That's one of the main takeaways I actually have from this record. Is like, holy crap, like another really good Wu-Tang adjacent record that's just filled with all kinds of samples, and Riz is like unbelievable. But as far as this record goes, it's too long, but I did enjoy it. It was kind of, I only listened to it twice, and I feel like I only have surface level understanding of it, but I think I did like this. I like the samples and the beats of this better than the Raekwon record, Only Built for Cuban Links. Certainly liked it better than, I think the one I just flat out didn't like was the ODB record. That was a little, it's a schizo for me, but I think the samples are drawn well here. I do like Ghostface flow for the most part. He also seems to kind of, particularly like in a song like Wildflower, he's got like it's another kind of an aggressive, almost angry tone at times that he can have, which sometimes it's not my favorite. I like a smoother flow. I wouldn't say his voice is as smooth as some other rappers that I really like, but I would also say that the more aggressive nature of his flow wasn't as off-putting as I've been from other artists in the past. I think some songs that stood out for me, I really like Daytona 500. I thought that had a cool like guitar part. I thought Assassination Day might have been my favorite. That's just got a cool minor. I don't know what that is. It's kind of got like it almost seemed like it was derived from one of those kung fu movies. It's that Riz is really into. It's that the guitar part there's kind of got this weird minor key that's kind of Eastern, influenced as well. So I really like the sample there. I do like the other members of Wu-Tang, coming in here and there, like, giving their cameos. RZA's rapping always makes me laugh. Like, I just think he's got an interest. I love his voice, but like sometimes I feel like he tries to like say too much in the bar that he has. He's got so many words, he's trying to put them together, and sometimes it's almost like he's got marbles in his mouth the way that he's doing it. So it's kind of I'm glad he's not my favorite rapper of Wu-Tang, so I'm glad that his experience there is short-lived. But overall I liked it. I think this, like, kind of the jazzier nature of the samples, as well as just the lo-fi production, I've always kind of liked that. I like some of the beats, the minor keys that they throw in there. So I don't really have much more to say. I think it's hard. It's getting harder for me to kind of differentiate these records from one to the next, because I like them all in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I probably would say I did like this overall. This is probably more up there with Liquid Swords. I definitely like this better than the Cuban Links, the ODB, and the Method Man record. Although I did like the Method Man record as well. So this, I guess I'm saying that this is towards the top, but I feel like I also need a few more spins of this to get a better, to become more familiar with it. But generally speaking, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I am quickly coming to the conclusion that my favorite Wu-Tang record or artist is whatever the last one I listened to is, because like you, Matt, they're all really solid. RZA does great work on all of them. The way that the members come in on their guest verses or make cameos, they all seem to, it seems so organic, and they all seem to like up their game every time I listen to them. They just seem so natural that they are a part of the song. I do like this one. I think, to your point, Matt, like thematically the blaxploitation and soul stuff worked really well for me. I've always kind of have a soft spot for those films, so like for hearing those samples kind of like allows me to identify this Ghostface record versus like Liquid Swords or some of the other things.
There's some scene setting there. Also, Usual Suspects. That's not really blaxploitation, but
yes, that's sampled extensively as well. I like Ghostface a lot. I just like his energy. He has, he's so kind of peanut butter and jelly to Raekwon, but he has like a different vibe to him than Raekwon. If that makes sense. I don't know quite how to articulate that, but I just kind of get a different feeling from him. But he like all the members of Wu-Tang are really great rappers, and I love the just kind of energy and confidence and skill that he brings to this album. This is another great Wu-Tang album, and it's, you know, it's essential listening too. I think you can't just listen to like the Wu-Tang albums. You have to listen to the solo records too to kind of get the full flavor. And I also appreciate Capadonna features prominently. He's an outer member of the Wu-Tang. He's like the Pluto of Wu-Tang and so he's coming inbound.
Has he been in anything yet? Is this our introduction to Capadonna?
He's definitely on Wu-Tang Forever. Like,
no, but in the run of CTS records that we've covered,
I think he has one verse on 36 Chambers.
He does, yep.
Does he?
Yeah,
okay.
Like he's pretty limited throughout, but it's always, I don't know. It's listening to Wu-Tang and these solo records are always like comforting in some weird way. I just like kind of the vibe they bring me, and they just feel like classic rap to me, in a way that, like, I don't know, the Beach Boys does for like rock and roll. If that sounds weird, I don't know. but yeah, it's a thumbs up.
Wu-Tang Clan, the Beach Boys of rap.
The length didn't bother me this week on this one, because you can kind of let it wash over you too, and come in and out, and then still like enjoy it. You don't have to I don't feel like you have to like dial in on every song and like every verse in order to kind of get the vibe of it and enjoy it. So thumbs up for me this week on this one.
Yeah, I love how each of these albums like reflects the person that's rapping. I really think that's kind of like awesome. Like, you know, Liquid Swords is sort of Jizz's like the, you know, the literate philosophical guy. You know, Method Man's is sort of like charisma, you know, right out of the gate, sort of like, you know, able to be played on stereos loud. ODB's is kind of this like avant-garde sort of like craziness that's like in there. And Raekwon and Ghostface have like that like mafioso, like street tales type element to them, but like in kind of different ways. Like I always think like Ghostface is like, in some ways, like he's like the sound of the street a little bit. And I'd like to like take you back again to like what Ghostface Killah said his life was like. I said it on the Raekwon album, but like I do want to remind you because it was around the same time, and I will use editing liberally right here. But he said, back then I was punching a lot of rap blank in the face, and blank was getting beat up in the clubs. We were banned from everything. They wouldn't even let me in the Tunnel, which was that like famous hip hop club that everybody was at, right? Blank was scared to death when I was out there wildin'. I was fucking blank up, robbing blank, fucking a lot of bitches, just doing dumb shit. So that's how he described like this era of his life, right? And you know, Raekwon described them as the EPMD of Wu-Tang, and RZA, in true RZA form, I do want to share this quote as well, said, Ray and Ghost together, those two right there were notorious kids from two different projects. This was an opportunity for Ray and Ghost to give us the street side. When we did it, I said, yo, it's going to be a very dangerous album. It's going to change the game. We're going to invite these demons, every negative stereotype, and deal with them. I always think of like RZA saying this about 100 times faster, you know what I mean? Like with like completely out of breath, just like he raps. So,
and sincere.
You know, just like it's kind of like, it's like the shit was lived. A lot of it was lived and experienced in one form. It's almost like DMX delivery a little bit, I thought, like RZA. It's like, and that's what he says. It's like the shit was lived. A lot of it was lived or experienced in one form or another. It's so natural. It don't feel like songs. It was a chance to show the world not only how New York lived, but also how Shaolin preserved New York. An older generation was leaving and getting older. We're from the crack generation. That real gritty, rough project shit. We was on the corners at 15, 16 doing shit you couldn't imagine. And that's what he said, like, this album was designed to, like, showcase a little bit. So, I love, like, Ghostface. Ghostface tone is, like, higher pitched, but, like, very masculine, but not, like, nasally either. It's, like, its own... I'm surprised, actually, Matt, you're not able to pull out more members, because like I think Raekwon and Ghostface Killah have like very clear, distinct styles, and on this album they very much stand out from Capadonna, who's got like a very different style. I think the more you listen, Matt, it's going to become easier and easier.
Yeah, I'm just not as familiar.
Well, yeah, you said it's improving. So
Yeah, I think it is. Yes, slowly, but yes.
But Ghostface writes like really great slice of life rhymes, even even when you get songs like Wildflower, where he is clearly pissed about, like, I think a girl cheating on him. And
Oh
there's
yeah,
some
that was graphic.
there's some
that was really
ridiculous lyrics that I can't even say right here, like from
No,
that
you
line,
can't.
like about long dicking and breaking ovaries and stuff like that, and just like hilarious shit that I'm just like, oh my god, like this is ridiculous. But yeah, great beats across. I didn't pick Fish, but Fish is one of my favorite tracks on this album. It's got that like nostalgic feel to it, but also it feels like of its time, but also timeless. I know that's like a word salad right there, but like you said, Josh, it's kind of like, you know, that's why Wu-Tang's forever, right? Because like you can listen to this and it seems like it's of the past, of the future, and of the time, right? Like it's and it's also for the children as well, as ODB said, you know, it's up there. But yeah, Daytona 500, Motherless Child. There's like bangers across this. The interplay of Raekwon and Ghostface Killah, use peanut butter and jelly, Josh. I like that. They're similar enough that they fit together, but they're different as well. Like Raekwon's got like a huskier voice, right? And it's a little bit more. They're both direct, but they're direct in very different ways. Like, Ghostface Killah is almost like stabbing you a little bit, whereas like Raekwon's like shaking you, you know what I mean, and choking you. But they both have like an intensity that they come at, and definitely there's like a street sense on this that like something like Liquid Swords doesn't have as much. Like that feels more like a kid like hiding in his bedroom away from the streets a little bit. Not that Jizza does not have the cred, right, and stuff, but it's a different vibe, right? Whereas like ODB is certainly of the streets, but in like a completely different way of this, right? So there's like a little bit of like an underpinning of violence to this album too, but once again, not like not necessarily glorifying it either, just sort of like matter-of-factly saying it's sort of around you, and then putting it with like almost like cartoonish like Marvel superhero, like there's actually a track called Marvel on this, right? So it's part blaxploitation, part comic book, part like kung fu movie. Like that's like Ghostface's like ethos. But I just really love the flow. I love a lot of the bars on this album, both from Raekwon and Ghostface Killah, and yeah, very easy thumbs up. Even though it's a little bit too long, it's the only of the 4 albums this week where I wasn't worn down by the length, I'd say. Like I was able to stay with it the whole time. So comfortable thumbs up for me. And crazily enough, like it only gets better from here, because there's a couple really good albums coming, and as good as Iron Man is, I like a couple even more.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Yep. The Supreme Clientele and Fish Scale are great.
All right.
Back
Matt,
to
it's
Matt.
going to be you for
Sweet.
a while.